We recently got back from the RockNPod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee, and kind of wanted to share some highlights with you. It was a great event, happens every year in Nashville. It brings together podcasters, rock musicians, vendors of all sorts. There was guest panels. There was live podcasts going on. We interviewed a handful of people. We were interviewed ourselves. And there was all kinds of vendors selling vinyl, comic books, T-shirts, horror, swag. Basically just a great big rock and roll geek fest. And we felt right at home.
Yeah. First off, let's kind of go back to the beginning. And basically, here's how this happened. Now, a lot of people know, or they may not realize, because it may not be something they think about, and I wouldn't bother me, because you have everybody has better things to be thinking about than this crap. But
he is our publicist, ladies and gentlemen.
The real deal is we've only been doing this for a couple of years. To my knowledge, the podcasters that get invited to RockNPod or sign up to be on the boat, so to speak, they're it seems to me that they're long in the tooth. They've been doing it every year. Oh man, last year was awesome, but this one was, I hear that. It's kind of like when people go to South by Southwest as a pilgrimage every year, or some other music festival near their hometown in their state. They travel to go check it out. Or hell, even there was a guy at RockNPod from England.
Yeah. Big fan of the show. Jim, all the way from England. No, I'm sorry. Jim Rob. Was the guy in the Exodus shirt who was
Rob.
Rob. Okay. Yeah.
If we're getting that wrong, sorry, dude. I want to say his podcast was called Straight to Video.
Yes, that's correct.
That sound right?
Yep, okay. Yep. He bought a shirt from us.
You knew who we're talking about, and if we fucked that up, I apologize. We only met for 5 minutes, but you were gracious and very kind.
And he bought a shirt. Thanks.
Well, you gotta love that. That bought us a fish sandwich that night.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I'll start with Tyson Leslie. He is sort of everyone's buddy. He is a multi-instrumentalist. He is a professional cat herder. He puts together these jam nights in Nashville at different venues, I believe. And he's been doing those forever, apparently. I met Tyson on one of the Monsters of Rock cruises a couple of years ago, and he was a fantastic, super kind. He's a fan. My introduction to Tyson was, hey dude, you don't know me, I'm Tyson, but I got to show you this video. And he showed me a video on his phone or something, or maybe he had sent it to me in an email and I didn't know who he was, so I didn't, beware, you don't know this person kind of thing, right? Email. But I think I had seen it before. Anyway, he had it on his phone and he goes, just check it out. And I'm watching him and he's singing Scared, Dangerous Toys at one of his jams.
Wow. Nice.
And he's nailing it. And I'm like, whoa, dude, he's all the high, squealing pig crap at the end that I'm doing. He nailed it all. And I'm like, what? So we were immediate friends because he was obviously a big nerd, and he had to show me that.
Yeah.
It was like, if you cover Van Halen, you don't walk up to David Lee Roth and go, dude, come here, check this out. It's kind of, so obviously he's a nerd and I was approachable, and
you do if you're Tyson.
He right. He's not afraid of shit, obviously.
Yeah.
So he apparently he had suggested, and we've had Tyson on our show, he was one of our earlier guests actually. And I was contacted by Chris. I'm not going to try to say Chris from RockNPod.
Yeah.
Attempt to say his last name.
I think it's Sinzak or Sinziak.
Sinziak. I like
Yeah.
the way that sounds. Sounds like a death metal band.
It does.
All right. So Chris from Sinziak. Hello, I am Chris from Sinziak, here to take over your kingdom. I get an email from Chris, and I'm so dumb, I didn't realize he's the guy. He's Decibel Geek. That's him. I didn't even know that.
Mhm.
Excuse my ignorance. I'm new to the game. You'll have to. I'm confused a lot. So if I look like I know what I'm doing, that's it. I just look like I know what I'm doing. So anyway, I get an email from Chris, and I realize at the bottom of the email, it's like, wait, this guy's a friend of Tyson's, and it turns out that Tyson was the one that suggested that we get invited to go do this thing.
Yeah.
And we were super excited. We were excited to tell Jared, our producer, about it. This Talk Louder is his brainchild. And I mean, what was your reaction when I called you and said, dude, you want to go to Nashville?
Well, yeah. I mean, I was like, what is he talking about? And so I dug into the email thread and I started to realize there's an event and we're being invited and they want us to show up and do our show, basically. Yeah. And I thought, wow, that sounds great. And then, then my first thought was, why us? But okay. Yeah. And it turned out it was awesome. I mean, Chris, and got to give a huge shout of thanks to Chris Sinziak, who organizes the event. His wife was amazing. Tracy McAndrew, who handled all of our travel plans and our schedule throughout the event. And our schedule changed multiple times due to flights being rerouted and that sort of thing. Our driver, Rick, was a superhero. I mean, that dude picked us up and dropped us off at least 15 times in 48 hours.
Let's
and
talk
got
about
us
Rick
everywhere.
for a second. We had great laughs with that guy. That guy was nothing but positive. If we started to even bend a little bit on a subject, he was right there with us. He supported us in every way that he could. And that just meant this guy's obviously super open thinker and free reign. And he'll tell us his opinion when it's appropriate. But if he feels strong enough after he's known us for a couple of days, and we just bonded with that guy super easy, it made me think, surely this guy gets this gig because he's a good guy, a friend of Chris's, which he did divulge, right. And that he wants to help out. He's a road manager for like Carmine Appice and Pat Travers, which is right. What? Those are two rock gods, and no wonder. So Rick was the man. Rick, we love you. I can't remember your last name, but I know we have your card. We need to reach out to him and say thanks.
I believe it's Schobel or Scoble, however he pronounces it. But
that sounds good. He
was not only super reliable. I mean, waiting with the engine running multiple times throughout the event. Always early, engine running, ready to go. And not only was he super reliable, but he was also a lot of fun to hang out with. So, yeah, Rick, thank you so much. And again, thanks to Tracy, Chris's wife, Aaron Camaro, who introduced us on the main stage when we interviewed Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister. The hospitality was off the charts. We couldn't have been treated any better, and can't thank everyone enough for showing us such a great time. It was an amazing experience.
There was a lot of vendors there. It reminded me a little bit of like, what some might call a rock and roll garage sale, which I've been to a bunch of those kinds of things, and those are super fun.
Yeah.
People were selling vinyl, new vinyl, old vinyl. It was mind blowing because these were the kind of people that, and this goes out to the record collectors. These were the kind of people that you either know already or you should know. And here's why. So you've got these artists. RockNPod kind of got a twofer with me, right? Artist and podcaster. So I was being thrown against the wall multiple times. There were people, I did a 30-minute signing and that was a lot of fun, and got to meet some people that I'd never met before, which have never seen the Toys play. Some of them had Watchtower vinyl for me to sign. All of that. I signed a lot of Broken Teeth and Evil United stuff. Where I'm going with this is the vendors there, a couple of them, more than one of them, had an original pressing of the the debut record from Dangerous Toys, and it was going for like, you know, $100x, right? And people are like, dude, I just bought this over there, and I want you to sign it. And I'm like, hold on a second. You found this? This is out of print, this rare, and you paid this price on there? And, you know, it said like $100 or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, you just laid that much. I'll give you my firstborn. You know, where do you want me to sign it? Can I sign the tires on your car? You know, I'm cheap date. You know, let's make it happen. You know, I was just over the moon that this kind of thing was bringing these kind of nerds and wonderful, almost like long lost family members all under one roof.
Yeah.
The thing,
and some of the names that were associated with this year's event, there was Eric Martin from Mr. Big, Don Jameson was there, Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sisters, Stevie Rochelle from Tough, Mark Wise, the rock photographer, who is plugging his books, The Decade That Rocked, and he's got a new one called Keep On Rollin' that highlights Kevin DuBrow and Quiet Riot. Tuck Smith was there. Ron Keel was sort of the centerpiece. There was an event called Keel Fest in which Ron did a bunch of songs, including Steeler, where he was joined by Steeler bassist Rick Fox. And then a bunch of podcasters. I know I'm skipping some names. There was too many people to remember, but
Jack Gibson from Exodus.
Jack from Exodus.
Martin Motnick from Accept.
Yes, Martin was great. We had him at our booth. We did an interview with him.
Jeremy, who played with Ace and Gene.
Yeah, Jeremy Asbrock.
He has his own things going on too, but I'm not quite sure what they're called.
Yeah.
And all of these people were incredibly kind, and obviously a lot of people had donated their time to be there because they live up the street, kind of thing. And that the way that they were probably monetarily rewarded is they were able to sell merch, right? They were given a booth or a table, and they were there to hang out with fans and sell merch, and didn't have to pay a percentage. That's usually how these things work and should work. And that's how I felt it went. The whole weekend was great. There was let's talk about the jam. There was a pre-party on Friday night, which would have been March 17th.
Right.
And we flew in. Our itinerary was, you know, get up crack of dawn, be at the airport just after, hope that we have a seat on the plane.
Yeah, that happened more than once.
It was Spinal Tap for us in the airports, plural.
Yeah.
We survived the airports.
Yes.
We got there. Our one of our rooms wasn't ready, so we got to go do sound check and meet everybody, and that was still Friday.
Right.
And that was, I'm glad we did that, because it just
definitely
a lot of hurry up that would have had to happen the next morning.
Yeah, not having the room ready was actually a blessing in disguise, because we were able to set up our booth the day before, and originally we had planned to do it the morning of. And after I saw how much work went into setting up, I was grateful that I wasn't stressing out on that, as well as doing our scheduled interviews the day of. So
I knew that it was going to take a little while, because we had to figure out our logistics of our backdrop, our cables. You know, it's like it's doing a real gig when you're doing a remote. You know, there has to be a table, there has to be some sort of place to hang a banner, there has to be good Wi-Fi or Ethernet. You have to make sure. We were put in a corner, which I really liked, actually, because we didn't have any neighbors. It was quieter over there, and we're working with live microphones, and there's music playing and other podcasting going on literally just feet away. So we had to really kind of like roll the dice and see what we were going to get. And being able to do it, like you said, the day before was, I was like, we can do it. If we get there at 8 and our first interview's at 10, it'll be fine. But you got to think about breakfast. You got to think about, do we have enough duct tape?
Yeah.
I mean, when we
Yeah.
got there, we were borrowing duct tape from people. It's like,
We used
oh
a lot of duct tape.
yeah. There's pipe and drape is like literally what it means. Pipe and drape. You see these partitions and some of these conventions, or sometimes a club or a venue won't have a true dressing room for the opening act, so they'll do a pipe and drape, and it's literally PVC frames with tripods on them, and there's just like a black curtain going around making this square in the middle of a gymnasium type of.
Yeah.
That's we were expecting that, and we didn't have that. Because your banner, when you think about it, you just clip that sucker right on, get it in the shot, and do your cables and do a sound check, and that's done. Well, we used about 100 feet of duct tape.
Yeah.
The good kind.
Yeah. The expensive kind.
It probably cost us $20 to tape our banner to the fucking wall.
But it didn't go anywhere, and it looked great.
I knew it wasn't going anywhere. We were using the good stuff.
Who do we thank for the banner? What's the woman's name?
Yes, Beth Marsh at Sign Effects in Austin, Texas. Beth Marsh,
you so much.
Sign Effects. For anything that has to do with banners and signs and emblems, any kind of. Beth doesn't do shirts, but can do stickers. But the main thing that Sign Effects does is like, you want a sign, you want stuff to go on a billboard, you want an installation. Sign Effects. Our banner just killed. I don't know. I don't want to talk shit, but I really like our banner.
It looked great.
And I really like our logo. Thank you, Stuart. This was really the first time we had blown up that logo that you made for us, Stuart Laurence, the Bat Lord from Igniter.
Yes.
Who has been on vacation for a week down in Cancun. The day that him and his family landed, he had some medical issues and had to have immediate surgery. He's okay though. He's up.
Oh man.
He's having he's drinking a mimosa on the beach in Mexico right now. He's probably not doing that because he's got stitches or something. But it sounded like it was appendicitis. Okay. I have no idea, but he's fine. He's going to play the gig this coming Wednesday. We're opening for Vicious Rumors at the Lost Well here in Austin, so that'll be bad.
Right on. So you started with the Rare Hair pre-party. So let's get back to the schedule.
Thank you for bringing me back over on the. I'm running off the rails, aren't I?
Right. So
it happens a lot with me. So
we landed in Nashville on Friday, set up our booth,
sound check. Went to PF Chang's.
The first time.
Right. Went to, it's by the hotel. You know, it's walk. You walk. What's the best restaurant nearby? Probably PF Chang's.
And our waiter Sid, who was great.
Sid. So we went to. Rick picked us up. We went to East Side Bowl, which has an awesome club that probably holds about 600 folks. In the back of this really cool bowling alley that has a stage in the front with country bands playing the whole time. That place was cool.
Yeah. It was like an arcade / bowling alley / music venue.
The pinball room was out of control. It looked like something out of 1982. It looked like you could have walked in there and go, "Where's the cast of Stranger Things?" It was totally like that. Low light, neon everywhere.
Yeah. Bump into Spicoli.
So we had a good time at the jam. I was scheduled to do a couple of songs. I was super excited. We did Back in Black and You Got Another Thing Coming. Jack Gibson from Accept on bass, which is super exciting. And I had just seen Accept and Black Label Society. And I'm sorry, not Accept. Exodus.
Right.
Exodus, Black Label Society, and Anthrax in San Antonio just a few weeks prior. And it was my buddy Jack Ivans on drums.
Right.
And Jack, I met the same time that I met Tyson on the boat on the Monsters of Rock cruise a couple of years ago. And he's the salt of the earth. And those guys do a lot of the rare hair. Like Jack is always there for Tyson. Now, Tyson and Jack are touring musicians. They work hard. They're play
Yeah.
for country and rock bands all year round, and they're flying all over. Jack had just landed from Egypt
Oh,
like
wow.
the day before.
Wow.
And yeah, crazy. Anyway, good people. The jam was incredible.
A lot of fun.
Eric did like 4 Mr. Big songs. I did 2. It's too many artists to mention. It was like a 3-hour gig and ran on time like clockwork.
Yeah, I got
Amazing.
to bump into Ace Von Johnson from LA Guns. He was there. It was great to hang out with him.
We need to mention Ricky Rackman was one of the casters there, one of the guests there, and had a booth there. Ricky Rackman
Ricky Rackman was there
on Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. And the jam was fun. I hung out with Ace Von Johnson for a bit. Our buddy Bob Sutcliffe was there. We got to hang out with him. And the jam was great. Stevie Rochelle got up and did a few songs. You did AC/DC and Judas Priest. That was awesome.
Accept is getting some love here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like brain farts, but we just want to talk about Accept again.
And I gotta, this whole thing started with Tyson Leslie, and I'd never met him before other than having him on the podcast. And I really enjoyed getting to know him via the podcast, but meeting him in person was great. And then watching him perform, like, man, that guy's a beast. Every instrument on the stage he was able to play, and not just play, but he put on a show while he was playing. So I think in the context of RockNPod, he might be sort of like the musical director, because he was sort of in charge of organizing all the bands and the set lists and stuff.
He's almost inhuman. He does that rare hair jam is what he calls it. I think the rare hair is kind of suggesting that it's like hair metal stuff from MTV days, but it's on the records, and on the records like if it were Winger, they're not going to do 17, they're going to do a deep cut.
Yeah.
Or if it was Alice Cooper, they're not going to do, School's Out, they're going to do something, deep cut, old
They
stuff.
did Is It My Body? That was cool. Ace on guitar.
I mean, just every time they have these rare hair jams that don't have anything to do with RockNPod, but
right.
So I think that's his brainchild, and he's been doing it like forever. So everybody in Nashville area knows Tyson from those jams, and he's had name a rock star, and he's had somebody at a rare hair jam getting up and doing it, because he meets everybody. He's on the road all the time. He does multiple cruises every year. So thank you, Tyson, for hooking that up for Talk Louder podcast to come and be at RockNPod. There's one name we haven't really mentioned that I thoroughly enjoyed that could have been one of, if not the highlight, and reason we really got excited and wanted more than anything after we got the news that we got to interview our special guest on the main stage was Talk Louder episode coming soon, Eddie Ojeda from Twisted Sister.
Yeah, that was great. And I really appreciated the fact that the RockNPod staff, I feel like they billed it as one of the main events, because we were on the main stage, center stage, with a live audience in front of us. We had Eddie up there with us, and we went about 45 minutes, which was long by RockNPod standards. Most of the guests it was sort of like, I heard a lot of people say the event is like speed dating, where you get a guest that sits down at your booth and you talk for 10, 15, 20 minutes, and they go, and then somebody else sits down and you go, and then somebody else sits down. So having Eddie for 45 minutes on the main stage, it was filmed, it was recorded. We'll have some of that available to you soon. But dude, I mean, Eddie Ojeda, 16-year-old me, was like, wow, I can't believe I'm sitting up here. I've interviewed a lot of people, but it was really cool to sit next to him in front of a live audience and sort of get that interaction going.
Yeah, of course. I was freaking out, and I usually I only have a few Twisted Sister stories, and most of them are, they start with the time that I saw them at Cardi's when I was 19 or something like that. No, that was it. I was 19. And I got to revel in that again. And Eddie's probably heard that story about 10 times now.
Yeah.
Because every time I bump into anybody in Twisted Sister, man, y'all remember playing Cardi's? And I tell the same because it's the only one I have. I have a bunch of photographs that I took with my mom's camera in the front row that night. I have tons of memories.
Yeah.
Me and my brother with Dee Snider, me and AJ Pero, me and Brian Bowen and Randy in a picture with Dee. I have a bunch of that. Live shots from the show. It was incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
He was great.
That was great. And he was really cool. And I want to give props to you, Dave, because I don't know if this podcast would be the same if you had somebody else or if I had somebody. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's the
I'm
chemistry.
really glad that you were the dichotomy between us. Interaction would be completely different as soon as you take me away or take you away or whatever, So we have to remember this sometimes, that even though we talk over each other and trust me, people listening and watching, we don't always have the same favorite, or when I say an artist that I want to have on the show, sometimes Dave goes, "Who the fuck is that?" That's normal. So it's not like, but that's what makes this cool.
Right.
We're always learning and schooling each other. So I just want to say I'm really happy that you were there. It's one of the reasons that you're the secret weapon. One of the reasons that you're in the middle is because you're the true journalist here. You kind of have questions that lead to other questions, and they don't always do that. Podcasters or interviewers or whatever, the person holding the sheet of paper with questions, it's not always going to lead to another question. It might be a yes or no question. And then at that point, the interview's next thing you know, it's over. Oh, I don't have any more questions. I said, that was a crappy interview.
Yeah. Well, thank you, first of all. And I think this kind of points back to, we got to give some credit to our producer, Jared Tuten, who probably recognized that chemistry between the two of us and thought that this podcast would be a great idea. I think you bring one thing to the table, I bring another thing to the table, and together that it works really well. But, Eddie I knew we were going to have him on the main stage in front of a big audience. And in any interview, I do my best to make sure the question can't be answered with just a simple yes or no, because that, if the person's not a talker, if you have a question and you're talking to Bret Michaels and the answer could be yes or no, it won't be. So you don't have to worry about that because he's a natural talker. Yeah. But if you get someone who's a little, maybe shy or soft spoken, and you give them the opportunity to end the question with just a yes or no, they will. So I try to make it to where it brings something out of them that they're going to elaborate on.
Well, either we or you are doing something right, or we've just been lucky to have guests that are a little loopy, and you ask them, "Hey, what color is your car?" "Hey, look at that, it's a squirrel," and they start talking about, and next thing you know, dude, I asked you what color your car was an hour ago. Right. And that's okay. We've been extremely lucky or unlucky that we've just been able to have these talkers on the show. So
yeah. All our guests at RockNPod were great, and we'll bring them to you in the coming weeks or whatever. But we had a great, conversations with all of them: Stevie Rochelle, Don Jameson, Martin Motnick, Mark Wise was one of my favorites.
Yeah,
Mark was great, and maybe I shouldn't elaborate too much here because we'll save it for the Mark episode. But I always appreciate it when you get to speak to someone who's in the music industry that's not necessarily a performer on stage, because a lot of those people, their history is documented, obviously, because they're very public and they are on stage. But I like picking the brains of people who are behind the scenes and getting their perspective on the whole thing. And Mark was just aces in that regard. So
Well,
I
he's
really
got a
enjoyed
lot
it.
of energy too. I don't see how he keeps up with it all. He's always got something going on. He's always doing expos and shows showcasing his art and, selling his art, his photographs, right? He
Yeah.
usually has these giant blow ups that he travels around with, or some, it's not all the time, I'm sure, but he's got giant blow ups of like photos he's taken of like Ozzy and stuff, like in his gallery at home.
Yeah.
And I've just seen pictures of that kind of stuff, and I'm like, whoa, that's crazy. I know he sells that stuff to galleries, to rock and roll museum type venues and stuff. So
Yeah.
he's a busy guy.
He was
And you're
great.
right. He's long in the tooth. He's been doing it his whole life since he was a
Yeah.
kid. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of cool stories and
Yeah.
probably happy accidents as well. And that makes for, a good interview as well.
We had great conversation also with a couple of guys that I wasn't sure what to expect. You're friends with Anthony Quarter from Tora
Yeah.
Tora, and he happened to just be walking around. He wasn't even scheduled to be on our show, but you sort of got the hook and pulled him in, and he sat down. And I thought I really enjoyed that conversation because he spent some years after Tora Tora actually working in the music industry on the business side of things. And that was very insightful. So I really enjoyed that conversation. And he, like you told me, just the nicest guy in the room, a real sweetheart of a guy and a great story. And then we had our final interview of the day was Paul Taylor, who is probably best known for his work in Winger.
That was mind blowing.
Yeah, he was in Winger. He spent some time with Alice Cooper. He got his start with Aldo Nova. He's worked with Steve Perry from Journey, and another guy that I knew his history, but I didn't know him as a personality. And he was just a genuine, really sweet, humble guy, and I really enjoyed finishing the day talking to him.
Yeah. The Paul Taylor episode is going to be a bit more epic than I would have ever expected. Because he kind of talked about a little bit about his process in writing, what he personally enjoys about writing songs. Seemed to me, if I recall correct, I don't think I'm blowing anything. Like his true passion is writing, is putting together chords and melodies and collaborations and
Yeah,
things like that. But he's a music man, and chances are that 90% of our listeners have probably seen Paul Taylor as a backup guy for multiple artists,
yeah,
multiple, and they
yeah.
didn't know. He's kind of an unknown. He's very unassuming. Well, you'll see. I mean, when I say Paul Taylor, I mean that's a great rock and roll name, but it's kind of generic sounding too. It's
Well,
like
that
it's like Roger Taylor. There's about 50 of those, and
that's kind of
they're
where
all
I was
drummers, I
going.
think.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys. He's done some tremendous work, but he is kind of in the shadows a little bit. I didn't know what to expect of him because again, he's not the first guy that you see interviewed when you start talking about the bands he's been in. That people interview Kip Winger and they interview Alice Cooper. You don't hear a lot. At least I haven't heard a lot of interviews with Paul. And wow, he was just a great history, great story, great career, and just a great, chill, humble personality as well.
I tried to give him uh the trophy of compliments. I tried to say, people, maybe I'm just saying this and it's obvious to everybody else, but it seems like it goes unsung to me personally that you, Paul Taylor, and you'll see in the interview eventually, are like this secret weapon for many of these hotshot artists.
Yeah,
And he immediately jumped over and said, well, I owe a lot of things to Kip Winger because I've learned so much by working with him and multiple Steve Perry. I changed how I approach writing songs after I worked with Steve Perry. He mentions that.
yeah,
But he goes into his process and he starts talking about Kip Winger. He just turned the compliment. He took my compliment and gave it to Kip Winger. And that's
Yeah.
fine. But it just goes to show you here's this master song man. He's a song man,
Yeah. Yeah.
as well as a showman, but he's kind of unassuming. Like I said, he doesn't have big hair. He's not wearing a purple cowboy hat. He's
Not
very
anymore.
unassuming. He's very humble in every way. Even when sure, he's got some cool jeans on and a rock and roll t-shirt, but he in a jacket or something, but he's very low key by choice, I think.
Yeah.
He is the motor behind a lot of stuff going on in rock and roll. Anyway, he handed my compliment as quick as he could over to Kip, and I was like, "Damn, that's crazy." And so there must be, a lot of headbangers make fun of Winger, the Beavis and Butthead make fun of their little cousin Stuart for wearing the Winger shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
Here's the deal: we're at a time now to where if you're a musician and you were a headbanger 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and you wanked Winger, let me tell you something. A lot of you guys realize how good of a songwriter Kip Winger actually is at this point. And if you don't realize now, whether you like that kind of stuff or not, you have to take your hardcore off and set it on the table next to you for one moment and think about the melodies, what's going on. Here's an eye opener. Kip Winger writes classical like operas.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mic drop. That's all I got to say. He write and like the people that hear these who write operas all the time start working with Kip Winger, and they want to help him with his they want their orchestras to play those pieces written by Kip Winger.
Yeah.
Mic drop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
I mean, the whole band.
Stop with any kind of Winger wank you have loaded in your wank gun, because it ain't going to happen.
That whole band, you can say what you will, but you put them up against any other of their contemporaries in the 80s, and pound for pound, man for man, they're one of the most talented bands on the planet.
It's okay that you and me want to hear Motorhead. We're going to reach for Motorhead every day over Winger. I don't have any Winger.
I don't either.
That tells you what's going on. But here we are.
But I'm not going to deny their talent at all.
No fucking way. That's what I'm saying. You can't deny the talent that is music and people who were born to do it. That it's like breathing to them. They wake up and have a coffee just like me and you, but then they're writing a fucking orchestrated opera piece that someone in Italy is going to play in a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were on MTV in the 80s with big hair wearing silver clothes.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. He was great. I really enjoyed him. I mean, I really got something out of all of our guests. I had such a great time. I mean, if anyone out there is listening that hasn't heard of RockNPod and has never attended, I would consider making it your vacation next year. It happens every year in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah.
It was in March this year. I'm guessing they do it around the same time every year. But it was a really well organized event. And there was, if you were a spectator just wandering around in the crowd, you would have had plenty to keep you occupied and really enjoyed it. And they keep the price of admission very affordable for that kind of event and for the types of people you're able to meet and get an autograph from and that sort of thing. It was really, really, really well done. So hats off again to Chris, his wife, Tracy McAndrew, our driver, Rick. Man,
everybody.
If we didn't piss anybody off and they ask us back next year, I'll definitely be there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So our thanks to everyone involved with RockNPod.
You can look it up online. I want to say it's rocknpodexpo.com. I could be wrong, but
yeah, you can find it. It's in, rocknpodexpo.com. If that's not the website, just Google RockNPod Expo in Nashville, Tennessee, and you'll get the information you need. but it was our maiden voyage, and I loved it. Every minute of it was great. We were treated well and had a lot of great fun. And we got a lot of content out of it. So all of you listening and watching out there, stay tuned for our RockNPod Expo episodes.
Yeah,
They'll be coming up.
Came home with like 8 or 9.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
8 or 9 different guests on
right.
Talk Louder via RockNPod.
Yes.
There is a pay-per-view. They filmed and pro recorded all of the events that happened on the main stage there. All of them. It's no music. It's all podcasts, and it was a bunch of different moderators and guests. Like for instance, one of the things they had up there was the Sunset Strip. There was a lot of people involved with the Sunset Strip who were either in Decline of the Western Civilization Part 2, The Metal Years,
Right.
or were on set, or were living in Hollywood when that was going on. Ricky Rackman, Stevie, Rochelle, I can't remember who else, but
Rick Fox was part of that.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. And the guy from Seduce, I can't remember.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Who's in the movie?
Yeah.
He's in the movie. So those so that was probably something that I would have probably wanted to sit in the bleachers and watch, but we were busy.
Yeah, we were busy. I was hoping to maybe see the city a little bit because I'd never been to Nashville, but we were booked solid and kept very, very busy. But it was so much fun. The time went by so quickly that no complaints at all, man. I really had a great time.
Well, look for our posts. The pay-per-view, I'm sure, is going to be available for a long time. You could probably just Google RockNPod pay-per-view Nashville 2023 and probably find a link for it.
And I think it runs through April, so it might be over by the time people see and hear this. But, the point being that I think they're going to try and do that every year. So even if you can't be there in person, there's an opportunity to still be part of the event via a pay-per-view that comes afterward. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's amazing. And this might be RockNPod wrap up from the Talk Louder podcast. Stay tuned for all of the cool interviews that we Talk Louder got to do in Nashville at RockNPod. And until the next episode, I'm Jason, and that's Dave for the Talk Louder podcast.